Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today I want to talk about the repercussions on the food supply as a result of the flooding in the Midwestern United States and other weather anomalies around the world. As tragic as it is for those farmers, I don't think it's going to have as grave of an economic impact on everybody in the United States as it's being projected. But all it's going to take is a handful of other disasters compounded on top of this one, which may lead to some very significant increases in the cost of food. So let's talk about it. I want to attribute motivation to make this video to Praxis Prepper and Alaska Prepper. Both of them made videos about this particular topic. I want to keep pumping up Praxis Prepper's channel because I know someday he's going to have 1 million subscribers if he keeps it up, and then he can send a lot of those people back my way. So go subscribe to Praxis Prepper, and Alaska Prepper seems to have a good head on his shoulders as well. So go check out his channel. Okay, so here's my take on this whole flooding situation. The global food market is fairly resilient when it comes to localized disasters. And as big as of a disaster as this is, some estimates are putting the damage at about $3 billion, and that's not including all the other hidden costs. The damaged infrastructure is going to make things slow going to get back up and running to where they're supposed to be, especially by the seeding season, which is supposed to take place at the end of April in most of these regions. So what's happening now is a major disaster. A lot of people's livelihoods have been ruined. But as of right now, there is still time for the fields to dry and for farmers to get their seeds in the ground. Unfortunately, the prognosis for that is not good because NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, is predicting that this situation is only going to get worse as the snowmelt happens in the coming months, as well as with increased precipitation. So NOAA is predicting a catastrophic deluge. Go figure. If that happens and the impacted farmers can't get their seeds in the ground, then that is probably going to have some serious repercussions towards the end of the growing season. But it's important to understand that not all of the farms in the Midwest are impacted by this. Indeed, many will be, but the US is a net exporter country and they export a lot of food. So chances are this might just mean a reduction in exports, although those products are probably going to be sold to the highest bidders. So it's definitely going to drive prices up if your pocketbook is competing with the pocketbook of someone in some other country that the US exports to. But on the whole, it's kind of a drop in the global bucket in terms of food production. Even though this is the breadbasket of the United States, it still only accounts for a marginal fraction of the global food supply. So some of the stockpiles that farmers have been holding on to as a result of the current trade wars going on between, the United States and Europe and China over food will be there to appease some of the growing demand that occurs in the wake of this disaster. But the real problem here is going to be a cumulative one. So last year there was some major droughts throughout Europe. They're already experiencing record temperatures over there. We just had some record temperatures up in the Northwest Territories in Canada. I think it's like 20 degrees or something, which is mind-blowingly hot for that region for that time of year. On the heels, however, of one of the coldest winters in many, many years. So we're seeing these extremes as there's more heat in the atmosphere, and as the oceans heat up, there is going to be more moisture within the atmosphere that's going to create greater precipitation and just more wild extremes like we've seen in the past year, where we've had record hot temperatures that were followed by record cold temperatures. So my prediction for this year is that we're going to see more record temperatures, because as cold as it was where I live up here in the Canadian prairies, for the last week anyways, we've been above seasonal temperatures for this time of year. And these current weather extremes seem to be predicated on the changing jet stream as a result of the heat differential between the North Pole and the equator, which I've talked about in other videos before. Basically, the Arctic is heating up. That's well-documented science. It's not even a debate anymore. The only legitimate debate appears to be about what is causing the rise in temperature. And what can be predicted is that because a lot of that Arctic air was dissipated throughout the North American continent throughout the winter time, chances are you're going to get rapid heating up there this year, and we're already seeing that as we have these crazy record temperatures in the Northwest Territories. And I cannot emphasize enough how weird that is, because 20 degrees Celsius in mid-March in the furthest northern civilized part of Canada you can get is totally unprecedented. It's unlike anything we've ever really seen before. And that's a scary thing, because that potentially could be the harbinger of a very catastrophic Arctic sea ice melt this summer, which is well beyond the norm. But that's just a prediction. Let's just wait and see what happens. Anyways, it's the cumulative effects that we need to worry about. So we had flooding in Australia, we have drought in India, we have potential drought in Europe, and whatever other anomalous climate events happen throughout the next year are going to dictate just how much food prices actually rise. On the whole, I'm not worried about significant rising food prices, and I do say significant because food prices are always rising. They've been rising 2.6% every year for the past couple decades, and this is pretty evident when you go to the grocery store and you can spend $500, it seems, at Costco, and it seems like you only have enough groceries to last you a week or two, which is baffling to me, because there used to be a time, it seemed, and I'm only 38 years old, but I even remember as a kid, $100 worth of groceries would fill up a grocery cart. Now, people are wanting to eat healthier nowadays, so that might be part of the issue, is that we're trying to eat healthier foods. Therefore, those foods cost a lot more, and that may be a major determinant as to what's going on. But I do disagree somewhat with Praxis Prepper with regards to the price of food being cheapest that it's ever been. When it comes to staple products, anything made with high fructose corn syrup and rice and potatoes and wheat, those prices by and large have either declined or remained fairly stable over the past few decades. But on the whole, we're still seeing a lot of increased prices in other areas, particularly in produce and in meat. Especially if you want high quality meat, then you're going to be definitely paying a lot more. The difference between organic milk and non-organic milk is nearly double the price. So you're able to get your calories and possibly even some of your nutrients, but the quality of those macro and micronutrients is typically substandard if you're buying the cheaper brands. Now, this is part of the reason why food storage is so important, and not to oversell this, but the Harvest Right freeze dryer or freeze drying food is going to hold its value. And that's one thing I've said over and over again, is that if you have non-perishable food, which is pretty much what 30-year shelf life food is, most of us, if we're lucky, we're going to see another 30 years on this planet anyways, that is going to hold its value, and it's actually going to increase in value. That's why food really is the ultimate post-collapse currency. So for anybody, who's criticizing that machine as being too expensive, I do think it's an investment. And again, I don't think it's something you need. If you can't afford it, I've said explicitly, don't buy it. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of other options out there for you. It's just something that's going to allow you to add more quality and more variety to your food stores. But I will briefly say that this should be a lesson also for people who think that just because they do have land and that they can grow food, that you're going to be able to always do that, because natural disasters like these are going to occur whether the grid is up or the grid is down. So just because you have land doesn't mean it's a safeguard against a grid down scenario. You absolutely need food stockpiles, and you need them in safe places. You definitely don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, or in the very least, not directly on the fault lines. So am I really concerned about the food prices as a result of this flooding? Not particularly. I do feel for the people who've had their losses. And a subscriber of mine made a comment on a recent video about, well, what do you do if, you've put all your eggs in one basket like this? I mean, what happens if there were preppers in Nebraska, which there was, who have now had their livelihoods and all of their preps basically wiped out by this flood? What do you do if you're them? And I'm going to be speaking to that specifically in another video. Now, if there are going to be impacts with regards to this, we're probably not going to feel it for a couple months. We'll see what happens if they're able to get the seeds in the ground and they're able to get those crops grown. It's probably not going to be as bad as some people are thinking it's going to be, but we always have to be at the ready, because one of these events in isolation isn't that bad in the grand scheme of things. You might see a 5 to 10% increase in your food bill, which is sustainable for some people. But you start adding food crises in other countries, particularly some of the biggest crises in the world, who are also exporters of many staple products, and rice in particular, be they China or India or Pakistan, large countries like that. If you start getting a lot of pressure on the food system from those countries, then you're definitely going to see some major price hikes, because then your pocketbook is going to be competing with other people's pocketbook around the world. And the way global economics are set up, they may well send that food elsewhere, even though it's more so needed here. So the short of it is, I'm not too worried about this, but it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on, because it could very well progress into something very damaging. And of course, it may take years to recover, and there may be bumper crops down the road. But we all know that that can change in an instant, the way things are going nowadays. We're living in the age of extremes. We're living in the age of consequences. And we got to stay prepped. We got to stay ready, because a handful of events like this can lead to severe economic strain. And when food prices rise to the point of unsustainability, that's when you get civil unrest. That's when you get protest and revolution and potentially conflict around the world. So that's probably an even bigger concern. While a price hike might not lead to immediate famine, may lead to some serious political unrest, which is already being built upon a foundation of existing political instability. Basically what happened in the Arab Spring, but on a larger, more global scale. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if there's anybody out there who's watching this video who's been impacted by these events, please contact me at canadianprepper@hotmail.com. I would like to interview you and have you on the channel to talk about your experiences, and maybe we can rally as a preparedness community to help out one of these impacted families. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out. The best way to support this YouTube channel is to support yourself by gearing up through canadianpreparedness.com or bugoutroll.ca. Premium quality gear at the best possible price using the incredibly secure and easy to use Shopify platform. We offer free shipping to the United States for orders over $200 USD and free shipping to Canada over $75. So support the channel by supporting yourself.